like that. We have a mini Josh and a mini Amanda. And at one point in time, I was not their pastor, I was their youth pastor. And in Cincinnati, Ohio, getting to see them grow up and then get to see Braden as animated as he is. And of course, Sophia with as refined young lady as she is. Getting to see the characteristics of mom and dad flowing through both of them. I appreciate that. Well, it's a thrill to be able to pastor, and then to pastor a length of time to where you get to see those people grow up. They get to get married, and then you get to see their offspring and another generation. And God gives grace and life. I get to see maybe a third generation. Amen. I'm not trying to make grandparents out of you yet, but we got plenty of time. Well, Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and I'm just going to remind you, of course, the backdrop leading up to this. Solomon has helped us to understand by posing for us a statement in the very first chapter. In the very first chapter, and you can go ahead and find your way back to Ecclesiastes 4, but in chapter 1, in verse 4, one generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. There's nothing that's taken place in your life that hasn't also taken place in the life of other people. You can't say, well, you don't understand how bad I've got it. Well, I mean, I guess you could say that, but then again, you'd have to admit and confess that you don't know how bad other people have it. I mean, and you say, well, no, I mean, I wish I would have lived back in the day. I don't know what day that would be. Brother Johnson's day? I don't know. You're parking your brontosaurus, and I guarantee you, I mean, not having, I guarantee you there was some Boulder homes that were crushed by the backing up of a brontosaurus without having the beep, beep, beep going in the back or having the camera in the reverse. And so, I mean, there's nothing that yesteryears had that we don't have today, in some measure. As far as the pain, as far as the concerns, there's some things that apparently we're just going to have to deal with. And that's what Solomon has actually been on about. And remember, he brought this up in chapter 3, that there's a time for everything. In the life that you have, there's going to be seasons, episodes, cycles, events in your life that'll take place that mirror what took place many years ago. What Solomon faced in his lifetime is much the same of what we're going to face also in ours. He said there's a time to be born and a time to die. And spinning off that mindset of death and what takes place in between the time you were born and until the time you die is what we've been actually gathering our thoughts around. And we've been discussing several of them in following prayer. I'm going to remind you of what these are because we have this one that we're going to be discussing. And then we have another one or another two to follow. And I want to help us, or at least one more to follow. But let's bow for prayer first, and then we'll address the subject matter this morning. I want to speak on the subject, our dog-eat-dog world. Now, when you go looking up online, that particular idiom or that phrase, you're going to find somebody has misunderstood it. It's going to be that doggy-dog world. I'm sure that came out by some rapper, probably, who didn't understand. It's a dog-eat-dog world, not a doggy-dog world. You got it? But you can look online, and people are asking the question, what does doggy-dog world mean? It's just, you want to respond, idiot. Clean the crud out of your ears. Know the statement. But it is a dog-eat-dog world. And I'll help you understand where that comes from and how it applies to the text. Because if all I do is I get up here and I tell you what the text means, but I never help you to understand why it matters, then none of us are going to be changed. None of us are going to be helped. And so it's my objective this morning to take the text and then put it into our lives and find out, how does it apply to you and I, and what can we do with it? How will we be better because we made a trip to Bible Baptist Church this morning? Because there's a great deal of other things that we could have been doing. Sleeping. I mean, it's great sleeping weather outside. We could have done that instead and say, well, I just celebrate the Lord's Day in my own way, at my own house, in my own bed. It's a day of rest, and that's what I'm doing. I'm snoozing on. Okay, there's a lot of people that believe that. There's a lot of people that subscribe that. And I think maybe the reason is because when they come to God's house, they take a nap anyway. So they might, I mean, at least they can take a nap in their pajamas if they stay home. And I don't want that to be the case. And so I've got to give you something that was worth your time investment in coming to the house of God. Because many of you, if you have children, you know what it's like getting up in the morning and getting them up in the morning, and then getting them dressed and getting them fed and then getting out the door and waiting for 5 or 6, 10, 20 minutes for everybody to finally get in the car with a lot of honking going on. You're angered by the time you get into the parking lot. You're frustrated and you're yelling and screaming at one another. You actually need marital counseling. And then when you come in, hi, preacher. And under your breath, you're saying, we'll finish this and get in a car, woman, or whatever it is. So I want to help that your investment has been a good and a sound investment. Following prayer, we'll ask God's help. Father, again, we come to you as we've done on several occasions already this morning in prayer. We're thanking you for the day. We're thanking you for the word. And we're thanking you that you've given us at least some measure of attention that we can surrender our hearts, our minds, our lives for right now for the purpose of understanding your word. I pray, Father, you would help me as I do my best to speak clearly and give clarity to the message. I pray that the sermon would not just be a sermon, but it would be a message to our hearts, something that might be able to enrich, equip, and even change our lives. I pray that you'd bless our time. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, against the backdrop of death and dying, Solomon has been reminding us of certain human experiences that reach their final expiration date upon our death. Or, if you will, they have found their full explanation by the time we die. So there's some things in life that are not going to be over with until death comes knocking on your door and you're taken off into heaven. There's some things that you'll never find their fuller explanation for in this life, but you'll have to wait until you get to heaven to ask. And I have a sneaking suspicion that once you arrive at heaven, you won't care. There's some things that we're concerned about right now because it's just kind of everybody else is concerned about them. And if I'm not concerned about them, then I'm the fool. And I don't want to be foolish. So I want to be concerned just as much as everybody else, and maybe even more so. But explanations and expiration, all of that can take place upon death. But there's things that are going on between the time we were born and the time we die that everybody else is experiencing as well. Solomon is actually helping us to understand 5 of those, and I gave you each one of them just several weeks ago about what they were, to where you can have an expectation about what to expect when you come into God's house, right? So we talked about justice, or in this case, unfairness, injustice. Injustice is something that you and I will deal with all our lives. It will never expire until we expire. Injustice is something, well, I was pushing for the promotion and I didn't get it. I was passed over by a clown that wasn't even here but 2 weeks, and he got it or she got it and I got passed over. That's unjust. That's injustice there. Well, let's deal with it, because it's something we all have to deal with until we die. And by the way, it's only upon death that we'll be justly served. We all deserve hell. But because of faith in Christ, we can avoid hell altogether and we can make heaven. But upon death, you will receive your just deserts. Lazarus, he received what was due him upon death, and so did the rich man. One died, and in hell he was in torments. The other went into Abraham's bosom. And in paradise, he was comforted. So these two, they received justice and win. Lazarus didn't have a lot of justice, a lot of fairness going on in his life, but he received it in the end, didn't he? The rich man, you say, well, he had a lot of justice. Oh, I don't think so. I think he had a lot of injustice too. Maybe he worked very hard and he was criticized because of all the wealth he had earned because of his hard work. Is that not unjust? We're going to see a little bit aspect of that today. But also, so when we embark upon the hereafter, then the injustices of this life will be finally over. But there's a second thing that when we opened up chapter 4 that Solomon helps us to understand. What about oppression? Oppression is something that you and I have to deal with in this life. So we have to experience injustice. We also have to experience oppression. And oppression doesn't cease until we cease. and say, then we'll be at rest. Well, I mean, obviously you'll be at rest if you have Jesus in your heart for sure. So that'll be over. Today, we want to unpack rivalry. Maybe you would use the term competition. I think rivalry and competition are a little bit different in their term. They basically mean the same thing, but there's a little bit different. There's a competition that is a friendly competition. I mean, two guys can go out golfing together, and there's a friendly competition. They can sit in the same cart and joke about their bad shots and still be competing with one another. And they don't club each other over the head with a 9-iron when they finish the round of golf, and one's dead, left on the green, and the other one walks away rewriting the scorecard. See, that's not a friendly competition. Maybe it's a rivalry. A rivalry can have bitter ends, whereas a competition can still say, "Oh, we can remain friends after it all." So I want to help us understand rivalry is something that you and I are going to have to experience in this life. We have selected for our title the phrase "dog eat dog world." The meaning of the idiom is this: it's ruthlessly competitive in this world, and so you must fight to get what you want. Now, obviously, that is not from Cambridge Dictionary or from Webster's Dictionary on Idioms and Phrases. That's just what somebody wrote when they were trying. And I think they captured it in more or less our language, where we can understand. You work really hard and fight to get what you want because no one else is going to give it to you. By the way, this is the theme of many a rap song. I mean, I'm not going to go around spitting rhymes to you this morning, but many of the people, that's what they're on about. It's all about making money, and I got mine, and y'all going to have to get yours, but you don't take from me. And I mean, but that's the theme. I mean, if you've ever heard, well, what you can listen to without the expletives, that's the message. The message still seems to be the same. I've got mine, and don't take from me. And other lyrics that you find maybe in other genres of music, you'll find the same theme, that I'm going to get mine, or maybe I'm struggling to get mine. One line that I remember from one song, I can't remember the song, but I do remember the line. The line, it was a very clever line, that in life, your hands get shorter and your pockets get deeper. And so with shorter hands, trying to dig deep into your pockets, well, the pockets are deeper and the arms are shorter. You're never going to attain. You're just constantly after this, and you're never. Remember, we gave you the line from an older generation of Pink Floyd, and I know you may not be listeners of Pink Floyd, but I like you keep chasing around the sun to find it's coming behind you again. The sun's setting, and here you are chasing it, and it's like, man, I never caught up to it, and here it is. Just turn around. It's caught up with you. And that's our days. Our days are like that. We're spinning around this world, this globe, and constantly seeking meaning. Well, Cambridge Dictionary puts the reference of dog eat dog world this way. It's used to describe a situation in which people will do anything to be successful, even if that means harming other people. They're not concerned about who they step on. They're not concerned about what they have to do to get to the top. I have a sneaking suspicion that your favorite actor did some pretty strange and bizarre, maybe even illegal things to achieve the stardom and the status that they have today. By the way, there's I love that movie because I love that actor. And then you find out just a little bit about that actor and you think, I don't think I like that movie anymore. Because now you know a little bit about the real deal. Understand that they're playing dress up and pretend for a living. And you remember that next political agenda. When so-and-so pretender is backing such and such candidate, don't follow him just because the pretender says follow him. Because that's what they do for a living. They lie. they pretend that they're somebody else. And maybe they're doing that right now to make you believe what they're trying to sell you. Well, you ever feel like you're hounded by the wolves, that it's the dog-eat-dog world, and you are the one being chased down. You're the one looking to be viciously attacked or assaulted, like you're on the receiving end of others hunting and hounding you. Well, the character Norm on the situational comedy called Cheers and now I'm dating myself, from 1982, 83, 84, that era, every time the guy would walk into the establishment, and I've been there in Boston, not in the tavern, but I've actually drove by and I saw it's underneath in a little basement called Cheers there, and it's there. I don't know what it looks like inside, probably not like the sitcom advertised, but I remember every time the guy would walk in, everybody would say, "Norm!" And then he would always have some quip. He would always have, the bartender Sam would say something to him. "Hey, what's happening, Norm?" And he would spit out something of humor, and all the canned laughter would roar and so forth. And then he'd sit down on the end bar stool and drink his life away. Well, I never want to go home to his wife, and who was never introduced in the show. But there was an interesting view that I found in one episode from Norm when he stated this when asked by the barkeep. He said, "Hey, what's happening, Norm?" He said this. He said, "It's a dog-eat-dog world, Sammy, and I'm wearing milk bone underwear." I feel like that sometimes. You feel like, everybody's hounding you. They're nipping at your heels or posterior. So and it is that way, it seems like. And by the way, let's get the bad news out of the way, is it's going to be like this until you expire. It's going to be like this until you die, that people are going to be trying to get theirs, even if that means they have to squash you in order to do that. Originally, the phrase dog eat dog was never dog eat dog. In about 1543 is when this particular phrase came out, and it's in the Latin, the original is this: dog does not eat dog. That doesn't sound like our phrase at all. Dog does not eat dog, but humans will. And that's what the implication is. The implications are this: that only people are driven by such survival instincts or quests for success that they will resort to biting at and even chewing up other humans. Where dogs may never do this, but humans will do this, which is a dog does not eat dog, but a human will. That's the implication. We have a lot of people today that are very less on the loving and very harsh on the hatred and very heavy on the hatred. And I want to spend just a few moments pondering this matter with Solomon from these three verses. And there's three words that we're going to capitalize on. The first is consideration. The second is condition. And the last is not conclusion, although you were close, consolation. And there is a little consolation at the end of it all. We'll get to that in a moment. So firstly, let's make a serious consideration. A serious consideration that Solomon is actually making in verse number 4. So consider this one with me then. Verse 4, again, I considered. Do you see? There's the word. I don't have to invent words. They're already invented for me. They're already found in the text. Again, I consider all travail. And notice this, and every right work. Not every work that's done, because Solomon's already explored every work. There's a lot of work that's been done out there, and it's vanity, vexation of spirit, chasing down pleasure, thinking that that's going to bring ultimate happiness in life and peace. It doesn't. It may bring about disease or plague. It may bring about poverty and so forth. Looking for power and conquering and properties and all these things. Well, when you die, who gets all the property? Who gets all the power? It transfers to somebody else. So it's not work, it's right work. So Solomon is now exploring all the good that could be done in the world, that could be considered right or even righteous. He's considering that work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. So here you are trying to do right, and you finally accomplish right, only to be envied in a bad way by your neighbor. Well, this is a serious matter. To consider is to weigh a matter by continuous and careful thought, or formulate an opinion or a plan based upon that consideration. And when we are able to consider and even meditate upon any the idea here from Solomon, we have to ask ourselves who, what, where, when, why, how. That's basically a consideration. So if you're unaware and you need to know, I'd like to consider something, but I don't know how. Okay, asking yourself the questions: when, where, why, what, who, to what extent. All of those simple questions is how you consider something. You meditate upon it. You ponder it. You think about it. Well, to answer the question what in our consideration, well, what are we considering? Well, it's the matter to consider is rivalry. And I think rivalry is the right word here, because here's a person doing right, and here's a person envying the result from his doing right. And this is a rivalry that's ended up, a harder competition. Deeper, the root of rivalry is envy. And because that's found in the text, we do not describe a friendly competition between persons of the similar talent. So you have this, you've got a talent for this, I've got a talent for in the same way for this, and so we're just competing with one another. Well, maybe we're competing with nothing at stake. I mean, so I can go out and I can be on the same bowling lane as another person, and the only things at stake is the highest score. But suppose my family's income was at stake, and now I have to perform to my best, and my best better be better than the other guy's best, because if I don't strike and he does, then I'm on the losing end of this, and my family may not eat as well as they would, or my future. There's a lot on the line. So in rivalry, there's a lot at stake. The World Series, now we've come into a point where this is a battle, or the Super Bowl. There's a lot on the line. I think I appreciate the NFL more than I do any other sport. Not that I don't appreciate them, and I enjoy them, but there's 16, 17 games in football, and you're done. I mean, how many losses can you have in a regular football season before you ain't making it to the playoffs? There's not even a wild card for you. The only card you get may be a pink slip, and you don't get to play for that team the next year because you failed, and that may be the coach. We're going through a lot of coaches in sports nowadays, but the point is that there's very little room for error. And so in life, we're going to find that that's the same way. And when there's a rivalry, you got somebody else with the same talent and they're pushing their agenda. There's a rivalry. Rivalry is more than just competing. And the synonyms, the words that are the same, mean the same as rivalry, are these: battle, combat, conflict, confrontation, contending. These don't sound like just a friendly competition, do they? How about a duel? That doesn't sound very friendly at all. Dogfight. Now, that's a friendly term. No, it's more than just a competition. Rivalry, grappling, face-off, struggle, war, warfare. These are all terms that mean the same as rivalry. So it's a big difference than just the term. So the matter to consider is rivalry, that either if I'm winning, somebody else is envying me to the point of bringing me down so as to make themselves the winner. Have you ever played King of the Mountain? I was fortunate when I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, to have one of my father's pastor friends and colleagues to live across town. And as he lived on the other side of Cincinnati, there was, through a cornfield, there was a huge rock quarry. And they had big sand dunes out there. They had big, the little pebble, the pea gravel. And that was the best to play King of the Mountain from, because you can push somebody off and they're not really going to get hurt. Sand could get in their eyes, and the bigger rocks, that was a little bit more jagged. You don't want to play on those. You get in trouble with your mom. But on the pea gravel, you can get up on the top, and no sooner than you get up on the top, you raise your hand, little Toyota, oh, what a feeling. Some of you remember that. You raise your hand, say, I'm the king, and you get pushed down. That's a rivalry. No sooner than you come to the top, you climb to the top, you did all you could by your efforts to rise, somebody else is looking to take you down. That is a rivalry. That's a good illustration of it. Well, that's the matter to consider. But now the who involved in this, everyone. Everyone, the people to consider is any one of us. And every one of us, at some point in our lives, are going to find our rival. We're going to experience rivalry because we're the recipient of it, or we're the giver. Somewhere in life, rival is an equal, a peer, one who, by matching abilities and drive, has arrived at the same status as you, but wishes to destroy you. You've seen all the Rocky films, maybe. My favorite is Rocky IV. This huge, towering Russian. He comes into, of course, the final scene, it all climaxes to the end where we have these 14 rounds or whatever it was, and both of them are beaten and bloody, but it is the big guy with the big gloves who comes over and says, I must break you. This is a rival. I mean, he's looking to pummel the opposition. He's not looking to just, I just want to punch you, just lay down and count to 10, and then this will all be over. No, he wants to do harm. And I still am not unaware. I'm unaware as to why boxing is still legal, but I mean, it is. So the competition, no, it's a rival. And any one of us can be a part of this. And in life, it's going to be this way until we die. The third question we can ask in our consideration is how? Well, the target to consider is success of others. How does rivalry even come into life? Well, because you were successful. In fact, because of your success, somebody who wasn't as successful viewed your success saying, I want the same success. In fact, I want your success, and I'm envy of your success. Somebody that gets a promotion. Have you ever had a friend that wasn't so friendly when it came to your success? If they got a new pair of sneakers, you say, oh man, those are great. Wow, that's amazing. I love your shoes. But if you got shoes, it took them like a month and a half for them to even acknowledge that you ever had new shoes. Or maybe they went out and got better shoes. Or you had one pair, they got two pair. Or one for every day of the week because they had a wealthy family or whatever, just to show you up. That's a rival. That's not a friend. There's nothing friendly about that. And any one of us can become that way and ergo not be very good friends. Well, the success of others. How did a person become in a state of envy that promoted rivalry? Well, they sought, and then they sought to destroy somebody with the same ability. Well, the hard work of another person, the additional effort put forth in other people, and the eventual success makes for an easy target for others to envy. By the way, we have that going on in our country. It's going on around the world. In fact, this attitude of rivalry, which the root cause of it is envy, it leads to a lot of isms, communism and socialism, because somebody works really hard to obtain what they have. Those that do not have as much look at them with envy and want to either bring them down or share in their wealth. Governments are established based upon this fact that I'm giving you this morning. So that you can't say that, well, the Bible, it was great for that time, but it doesn't really speak to me today. Well, then you need to get a better preacher that understands the scriptures to help you to understand. It does speak in our generation. It does help us to understand that this is life. Solomon is actually not giving us any good news. He's actually sharing with you, this is the way it's going to be until you die. At the end of it all, he's going to say, so it's good that you would remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Because other people are going through life without hope. You can have hope even in desperate, dark times, living like it is. And I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of myself by speaking for November's topics in April. Well, the belief is that if I defeat him or her at their own game, I must be more successful. Well, you can get lucky. I mean, a lucky punch knocks down the competition. Doesn't mean that you had the better training. It doesn't mean that you were more in shape. It doesn't mean that at all. So just because you beat somebody at their own game doesn't necessarily mean that you're the victor. You say, but I got the spoil. Doesn't mean that you're the winner. Not especially if you gain that by not right. Well, the what and the who and the how, the when, the fact to consider in this is that rivalry exists as long as envy abounds. Where there is envy in your heart towards somebody else, you are rivaling them. By the way, this could be an envy between spouses. There could be an envy. By the way, how about successful spouses? There's homes out there where the woman is just as success as the man, and the man doesn't. Maybe the man doesn't even bring in, as far as a salary, as much as the woman. Or maybe the man does bring in as much, but the woman has a little bit more notoriety in the community. If that man envies that woman, she has ceased from being friend and now has become rival. Where they're in not just a friendly competition, they're actually in a rivalry, because rivalries are based in envy. I'm upset with you because you can do more and people recognize your name more than they recognize mine. So I got to do something about that. And the only thing I can think to do is get you out of there. If I can remove you out of there, then that makes me taller. Well, not necessarily. What if somebody else comes in just before you? I mean, you moved them out of the line, but somebody else came in front of you anyhow. See, that doesn't always win. It's vanity and vexation of spirit. Well, it's going to be around as long as man is around. If a man is successful in his business, he becomes the talk or the toast of the town. And because some want to be toasted or somebody wants to be boasted about, they become envious of that person. That envy produces ill will in their heart toward their neighbor. The where could be seen this, the place to consider for praise is in heaven. And I can make the entire message just about this very first point here is this, that when we're making this serious consideration that there is envy of my neighbor based upon the right work that's done, make sure that what you're doing in life is worthy to be praised in heaven. Heaven is the place where praise is to be sent. I'm sending the works that I'm doing right now, maybe they are heralded by men and maybe they're not. Maybe they're praised by the people I pastor and maybe they're not. Jeremiah had a great ministry, but very few people on this earth outside of ourselves, many, many years far removed from him, appreciate his ministry. He had a lengthy ministry, but that doesn't mean the kings appreciated it. Pray tell, why would they throw him down in a pit of slime? They wouldn't do that to somebody, hey, I really like you. We're going to elevate you down to a pit. And that's not an elevation at all. No, they put him down, and later on he was slain. Because what about Isaiah's ministry? Maybe he was heralded by some people, but eventually he was sawn asunder, as history records. And so these, what about the disciples? Only one of them escaped a very brutal and a harsh murder and martyrdom. And that wasn't for lack of trying. John the Beloved, he had his body dipped in oil. Was he very appreciated? No. But he wasn't serving for men down here and men's applause, as some will in this life. So the where in this matter, if we're considering the where in this whole rivalry, cease from envy, you'll cease from rivalry. Cease from desiring the applause of men, and you won't be envious when somebody else gets greater applause, greater commendations, a bigger promotion, a larger house, better vehicles, a larger family, a prettier wife, if you think in those terms. You won't be concerned about those things because you won't be in a rivalry state, because I'm looking to please the Lord. Great is my reward in heaven, not on this earth. And if you're looking for men's applause and you even obtain it, you have your reward down here on this earth, and there's nothing to speak to in heaven. Those who live and act on virtue in this life will always be the envy of those who exceed in life through vice. Those that are living virtuous lives, doing the right work, they're always going to be the envy of others. I mean, we could be the envy of others. There's some churches that are very successful, and they're growing and growing and growing, and people are looking, say, there's got to be something wrong. I got to be doing something wrong to be that successful, because no church is successful nowadays. Isn't that incredible? Like, we pick a church apart, basically, I bet that pastor somewhere, he's compromised. I'll bet he'll wear shorts. That's probably what it is. The church is growing because he chose to wear a tank top. He's probably wearing flip-flops too. Well, it's Florida. Maybe he does. I don't know. Or maybe he just doesn't want to, he steps into a public shower. He doesn't want to get feet germs. I don't know. I mean, that's why he's wearing flip-flops. The point is that we pick things apart because of their success. And it happens, and I'm not talking about the lost looking at the saved. I'm talking about saved people looking at other saved people and saying, you're a success, and I don't like it. I'm envious of it. You must be doing something wrong. I think you might be doing something right in order to be successful. Well, that's just an opinion. But the blessings of the Lord, it maketh rich, and he hath no sorrow in it, something to that effect. Doesn't mean that if you're successful, doesn't mean that you're always doing something right. But then the why, and the why will be a quick one, because we're sinners. Why is there rivalry? When we're making this consideration about rivalry, and that's how we're describing the text in verse number 4, we've considered that the matter to discuss and consider is rivalry, that the people involved in this is any one of us. Why could it be any one of us? Because we are all sinners, that's why. We are all flesh, and we all like to imitate other flesh. We like to excel over other flesh, dominate the competition, as it were, or the opposition. And so we're all sinners. Well, moving forward then, maybe that didn't make any sense. Hopefully the second one will stab at you, and that'll make better sense to you, because there's a savage condition. The savage condition is found in verse number 5. Consider this abounding savage condition in verse 5. The fool foldeth his hands together and eateth his own flesh. Do you get a picture there? Folding your hands together. That's very difficult to do. I mean, you have to raise your hands up, I guess. And I mean, so what is meant here? Well, I think the folding of the hands, the Bible speaks in Proverbs concerning the folding of the hands. In other words, here's a person that refuses to put his hands to the plow. I mean, this position right here, what is this? When you see somebody, if the boss came in and you were working and he was like this, what does that look like to you? He's trying to make an observation. Maybe he's looking down. Maybe he's disappointed. He's got his hands crossed because he's actually supervising. He's not involved in the work, but he's checking up on you. Maybe it's a view of disappointment. I mean, if Dad came in the room and you were doing something you shouldn't be doing, and he's standing in the hall looking inside your room, you're supposed to be cleaning it, and you're not cleaning it, and he's got his hands crossed like this, that doesn't mean you're about to get a raise in your allowance. It means that there's maybe some disappointment. He's looking down on you. Here's the fool holding his hands. It depicts at the very least laziness. I mean, the fool foldeth his hands and foldeth his hands and he refused to work. He's not going to lift his hand. He's not going to lift a finger to do anything else. He's done folded his arms or folded his hands. But then also he destroys his own flesh. The folded hands and the filled bellies speaks of laziness and busyness. And the truth is that men who envy others often refuse to work themselves and only destroy themselves by their own devices. Here it is. I don't work, I should not eat. But because I refuse to work, I will come to you and expect you to feed me. And when you don't feed me and I starve, I'm blaming you. But whose fault is it? It's mine. Because based on my folding of the hands, my laziness, I destroyed myself. And that's what the text is actually. It's a savage condition. It's brutal. It's cruel. And you're doing it to yourself. You are your own worst enemy, we might have called it. Well, this is the truth, that men who envy others, refusing to work themselves, destroy themselves eventually and ultimately. And a couple of statements I think that might help us to understand this condition better. And this plays out in life. And this is how. Number one, they drag others down in hopes of feeling better about themselves. This is a savage condition. The rivals will bring others down if they can elevate themselves. So they go tell the boss and rat somebody else instead of going to that person themselves. Now, by the way, let me go ahead and back up, clarify a little foundation. As far as church discipline is concerned, we're supposed to go to our brothers first. But if that issue is not resolved that way, we bring another brother with us. And if the issue is not addressed then we have to go to the powers that be, the authority, and them have to come and solve the issue. There may be issues at your workplace, and you've tried to talk it out with that person. You've tried to even bring in maybe another leader involved in it. But eventually you're going to have to go to the ultimate power, and say, this issue is not I don't know, I'm doing something wrong because I'm not getting it solved. They're not sorry about it and it's still agitating me. Well, maybe you're the one wrong. Okay, that's a possibility. But then it could be that they're wrong. It could be the mixture of the two. It could be that only the boss just fires both of you and gets rid of the whole drama. But I mean, I guess that's an option, not one that we would like to consider. But dragging others down in the hopes of feeling better about yourself, that is what some will do. And that's a savage condition. The second aspect of this, I think, would be they only want what others have, not what they possess themselves. There are some people that are a rival to others because they never consider what they have. They never take an inventory about what you have. I think that the man who views somebody else's wife for himself is not considering the spouse he has for himself. He hasn't valued and appreciated his own children. He hasn't valued and appreciated his own wife. He's looking at somebody else's car and saying, man, alive, how they got that kind of car? I want that kind of car. How can I obtain that kind of car? I'll know why they have that kind of car. They're probably cheating somewhere. They're probably stealing somewhere else, dragging somebody down to lift themselves up, or not considering what they possess, but only ever wanting what others have. The happiness and contentment of others feeds their desire to take for themselves, never giving a thought as to what having it would really do for them. The fact of the matter is, I don't want your vehicle. You got a nice vehicle, but I don't want your vehicle. Because in having your vehicle, suppose I have to have your mechanic bill. Or by having your vehicle, suppose I have to have the payments. And you're so secretive about your payments, your payments may be more than your house payment. And I don't want that at all. You see, so we need to be very careful about the envy of other people, making it to a rival. I'm dragging them down, or I just want what they have when I really don't need what they have. I already have 5 of them. Well, how about the dog chasing the car? What are you going to do if you catch it? I mean, you can't tackle it. You can't bite it. This dog, we used to take care of this cabin, and every time we went over there, the dog would race out of another neighboring cabin and chase us to a certain point and then walk away. I mean, and chase and biting at the tires and so forth. There was no damage done. I mean, we taunted the dog as much as we could because it was an idiot, stupid. What in the world are you doing? But we're the same way. We're chasing down that dog could do nothing with our lawnmower if it caught it. Couldn't do anything with the trailer if it caught it. Couldn't do anything with my truck if it caught it. Then why chasing it? There's others that represent the book of Ecclesiastes as chasing the wind. Chasing the wind. Chasing the wind. What are you going to do if you ever caught it? You put it in your pocket, bottle it. No one would ever see it. No one ever say, hey, here's my trophy of wind. I hope you never break that trophy. Some of you are paying attention, and for that, I'm grateful. They kill to have what others possess, but never think about what they truly want. What is it that you want in life? Some people they don't have any idea what they want in life. They only want what you got. I have a sneaking suspicion. I understand why. You know why? Because you're happy with what you got. See, it's not really what you have that I want. It's what you have and how it makes you feel that I want to feel. I want to feel happy with what I have. And so I see you happy and proud of what you have, then I want that toy. I want that person. I want that feeling in my life. That's really what's going on. Well, thirdly, they mask their laziness with the efforts of envy-induced work. So now there's busyness and laziness. Some people get so busy in the wrong things that if they took half the time in the right things, they'd be more successful. I mean, how about the person who plans to rob the bank? There's a lot of energy and there's a lot of resources that put into this, especially nowadays with technology and alarm system. I mean, all the work and all the practice and all the effort that went into getting this, you could have got the money by right and never had to go to prison or not have the threat of being caught one day and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulders, knowing that you've taken not just the bank's money, you've taken other people's money who put their money in the bank, you see. Oh, but the bank's insured. It's done to make it right. Say, doing right work in the right way. Some people mask their laziness under a mountain of busyness. What I mean by that is those that cheat. You're actually lazy and you want to get something for nothing. So you're very studious and I gotta figure out how to do this. Why? So I can cheat the system. You are the reason why handbooks, guidebooks, rule books get so big. Why people have to read so much literature when they come into a new job. It's because of clowns like you that try to cheat the system. Well, the rule book didn't say I couldn't do this. It doesn't say that I can't do this. And then, oh my goodness, now we have to have, part A, B, C, and then little 1, little 2, little 3, little 4, and then under that, a couple of extra notes. So we can cover it all. And in this life, we're never going to cover it all. Well, they do not work because of a purpose that they do not possess. And that's why it's so important for you and I to find our purpose, or if you prefer, find your why. Why do you exist? Can you answer this question, or maybe this statement? In whatever you're doing right now, can you truly say, I was born to do this? I was born for this. Can you say that? What an unfulfilled life if you can't. But there's still time. Don't get me wrong, I'm not just giving you a backhanded compliment. I'm trying to help. So you say, man, I don't, with my job I work and with the efforts that I put in life, I can't really say that I was born to do that. I don't really feel that. Well, then find it. There is joy and contentment out there, and God does have a purpose for your life. That's why you cumber the ground. If it wasn't the case, He would just go ahead and take you on to heaven after you got saved. But He didn't, and He hasn't. If it's not what you want, why are you chasing after it? You're spending a lot of time and a lot of busyness chasing after something that you don't even want. And you wouldn't even do anything with it if you got it. There's some that are, is it kleptomaniac? The ones that steal just because they have an addiction to steal. It's a craving, it's an urge. They just steal it and they put it away somewhere and they never think about it later on until they get in trouble for it. Well, there's my nail clippers. What are they doing in your room? I found nail clippers in the oddest places. I have made the purchase of nail clippers that go into a drawer in our restroom in the master bedroom, and they disappear. They grow legs, they walk off. I found a pair of nail clippers inside where our silverware tray is. They were silver. The forks were silver. Like with like, color with color. Nonsense. Just because somebody took and they didn't put back. So there's a lot of busyness that's going on, but there's not a lot of satisfaction. There's not a lot of fulfillment. And that's why Solomon says that this is vexation of spirit. It's vanity. It's worthlessness. You're wasting your time spinning wheels. Finally, then, we come to a small consolation. In verse number 6 is where we see the small consolation, and with this we're going to conclude. Verse 6 in chapter 4. Listen to what he says. Better is an hand full with quietness than both the hands full with travail and vexation of spirit. It were better that you had less than you had more. You used the term before maybe in realty, maybe in interior decorating. Well, less is more. I mean, so I have less house to manage, or there's a big push with some people to live in a tree house. Have you seen these houses where they have all the amenities? You just have to be 4'3" to live in them. And so, pardon the wording here. So Munchkin land is something that apparently everybody wants to have because I can live in this cardboard box with air conditioning and it's got a toilet in there. I barely fit in where the toilet is, just because less is more. And I understand that we can get too bizarre with this and too extreme, but in many areas, less is more. A comparison is announced with filled hand, and quietness is in that full hand, or full hands and travail is in there. In other words, I have rest and peace in one hand. That's better than if I had both hands and it was filled with trouble, toil, work, mischief. Having only one hand filled with what brings peace and rest is infinitely better, says Solomon, than having both hands filled with what brings more work, more stress, more trouble, and more pressure. You say, well, where does this play out in life? Let me give it to you and we're done. That promotion will only bring about more pressure. We're looking after I want the promotion. But you understand, having that promotion, to whom much is given, much shall be required. So there's going to be more pressure with that promotion, but you never think about that. You're only looking at the status of having the promotion. So You say, well, does that mean I should never look for a promotion? I just, be, at the bottom rung all of my life? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that if you're seeking the promotion, make sure that that promotion is of God. Make sure that that promotion, you're going after it for all the right reasons. You're not going after it just because, well, I can do it. That's the wrong reason to go after it, because just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Well, I know how to do it. Doesn't mean it's going to bring fulfillment in your life, enjoyment in your life. Make sure that you're going after it not because of the status, not because everybody else wants to do this. I know I can do it better than everybody else, therefore I'm going to do it. That may not be the best of reasons for you to go after it. Maybe it would be better for you not to do it and let somebody else do it, because the pressure, you don't do very well under the pressure. So seeking the promotion is not a bad thing as long as you're seeking it for the right reason. Also recognizing you've taken enough counsel to understand there's going to be pressure and there's going to be responsibilities going to come with the promotion. Secondly, in life, that degree will only verify how little you know. I'm going after that diploma. I'm going after that master's degree. I'm going after that honorary blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go after so many PhDs, but I still can't find a JOB. We need to be very careful. Careful that we're going after this degree for the right reason, because truly, when you receive, the people that are the most educated, the most wise, are the ones who say, as much as I've learned, I realize how little I do know. That's a wise individual. And that's one you want to take counsel from, because they're not saying, I've got all these degrees and I'm still a blooming idiot. They're not saying that. They're saying that as much as I've learned and I realize how much more there is to know, I realize what I learned in all my degrees pale in comparison to what else is out there. So achieve that degree because you want to grow, not because you want to impress others. Thirdly, then, here's another way, and this is going to be a little sting in the tail on this one, that marriage will only attach you to another sinner for life. Have you ever heard that? Yikes. I know, it's for the gifted marital counselor, premarital counselor, understand that when you get attached and connected this is till death do us part. You're attached to the sinner until death. Understand that a marriage, that is. You're a sinner, she's a sinner, you're going to get hitched, and understand that you're both sinners, and it's going to make some trouble. So make sure that that person fills in all the gaps you have in your life. Make sure that person, well, I love that person. Some people have claimed to be falling out of love. Some people step in love like they step in a cow pasture, and we'll not go any further, but make sure that you're completed by them. Don't just scramble. And by the way, this goes for our young people. Don't just scramble to find somebody because you don't want to be lonely in the rest of your life. That's a horrible reason to get married. Just taking by the way, there are some people that do this, maybe for the wealthy. They get married to that person just to take that one off the market. Understand what I mean by that? Well, everybody else wants, she's the prize because I have more money and I can secure her hand in marriage and I can provide her more security and her dad will give it to me. Now she's off the market so I can be, I can boast and say, well, look at the charm I have and, look at my trophy wife, right? I hope every man in here believes they have a trophy wife. But understand, to just marry the trophy, not because you were attached to her, but because everybody else wanted her, but you got her. That's a horrible, because you're going to be attached to that sinner for the rest of your life. So this is I know this is a little consolation, but that's what Solomon's gone about. He's giving us the facts. He's not saying, hey, let me give you a lot of hope right now. He's going to give us a hope at the end of it all. Right now, he's working up to that. Also, I'd give you this one. That deadline will only pass to make room for another deadline. You just meet one deadline and, okay, I made it. Oh no, here's another one. You're just going right after another one. And that's the way, by the way, this is probably no more clearly seen than in the food service industry. Order for this, orders up, order for this, orders up, order for this, orders up, 5 orders for this, orders up. And you're constantly trying to meet a deadline. It's a 2-minute window. It's a 3-minute window. It's a 5-minute window in a larger dining setting or whatever the case is. It's constant deadlines. So understand that I met this deadline only to be faced with another deadline, and that is life. Be sure that it is a priority and not a quest for men's applause. I met all the deadlines, so I got men's praise. No, I met all the deadlines because it was a priority in my life. Make sure that the deadline that you're seeking after is actually the one that you need to be seeking after. Some of us, we meet up with all kinds of deadlines, and none of them mount to a hill of beans where our work is concerned. You say, Dad, I took out the trash. Yeah, I don't remember saying to do that. Well, I did it. Dad, I took a bath. Yeah, but I asked you to mow the lawn. You see, it's a priority to mow the lawn and to take a bath? Of course, but they got them out of order. Mow the lawn first and then take a bath. Knucklehead. In short, rest and peace are more important than wealth and fame, prosperity and success. Less is truly more. In the words of G.K. Chesterton of yesteryears, there are two ways, he said, to get enough. Two ways to get enough. One is to accumulate more and more. The other is to desire less. And what he is saying here is our possession can be raised to our desires, or we might bring our desires down to the level of our possessions. It is a matter of contentment. So content people don't rival with other people. Envious people do. At the very root of all our rivals and all our misery and our discontentment is going to be envy. It's going to be envy. Envy is not a very flattering thing for a Christian. Be not envious then. Our Father, we ask that you would take these words and may they be a challenge to our hearts, and may we be changed by them because we applied them to our lives. There are younger people in this room that absolutely need, it's critical for them to be thinking people, to be considering their lives, not rivaling others, chasing after the hopes and the dreams of other people just so they can get there first. You've given us a plan and a purpose to our lives. May we be on a quest and never cease until we find and discover what it is you want from us in our life. Thank you for the transformation that you give us through the Holy Spirit that comes within us upon salvation. There may be somebody in this room this morning that is without Jesus in their heart. They have never come to faith. I pray that they would receive Jesus as their Savior this morning. And for us that are believers, may we quit this thing of chasing down the dreams of other people, being envious of other people, desiring what they have. May we be content with what you've given us. Take then our desires and put them upon the level of our possessions. And may we give thanks and glory to you, for you alone are worthy of praise. In Jesus' name, amen.